Hey everybody, I hope you're having a good day in your little corner of the world. I'm having a pretty good day in my little corner of the world. I have a question. Have you ever felt jealousy or envy? I sure have. And let me define jealousy and envy because I've noticed that people use it interchangeably and they're not the same thing. Jealousy can be defined as something that it's a feeling of apprehension because you feel like something that you already have is going to be taken away from you. And envy, on the other hand, can be defined as wanting something that someone else has that you don't have, that you lack, right? And so these terms are usually used interchangeably, but they're not really the same thing. In my life, I have struggled with envy. I've struggled with jealousy as well, but I feel like envy has been a common theme in my life. It's been an emotion that I have experienced and become familiar with, right? And I used to think that being envious or being jealous was a bad thing, right? It made me a bad person. It made me into a horrible human being. But really, just as happiness, love, joy, peace, freedom exist within me, emotions, experiences such as jealousy, envy, anger, hatred, all of these other uncomfortable emotions also arise within me, right? They're not coming from an outside source. They're being experienced from within. I mean, yes, you can say, okay, let's say, for example, somebody has a car that you want, and you envy the person that owns that car because they have something that you don't have. You might think that the person, that other person, is the trigger of your own envy, but really, it's your perception that is causing the envy. Now, I don't really know how to explain this because I get it in my mind, and it took me so long to get it, but it's really hard to put it into words, right? So that other person is not forcing you to feel envy. That envy is arising within you. That event, that situation, oh, the other person has a car that I want, and there's this feeling of lack, that is arising within you. However, where we get caught up is when we start to define ourselves as bad for having these emotions, for having these experiences, because we have been taught that being envious, being jealous is a bad thing. And of course, envy, jealousy, anger, hatred, these are all very uncomfortable emotions. These are very intense emotions. Anxiety, these are all very intense emotions, and they're very uncomfortable. They rattle and rock the boat very much within you. Whereas more open, what I would describe more open experiences such as love, joy, peace, the feeling of ecstasy, these are more open and comfortable, right, to experience, it seems. So when we have these uncomfortable emotions, we usually equate it to bad, being a bad person. But of course, that is not true, not necessarily true. These feelings exist, these emotions, these experiences, whatever you want to call it, they exist to show you something within yourself. Okay, the person that has that car that you want, you say that that's the trigger, but really, it's your perception, it's your point of view that is believing that another person having the dream car that you want means that you won't have that. So there is this idea of lack. There's this point of view where you feel lack, right? I don't know if I'm making sense. I feel like I'm not. So you're stuck in this illusion where there is lack. And if somebody else has what you have, that means that there's a lower chance of you having what you want. Because, sorry, I said that wrong. If somebody else has what you want, there's a lower chance of you getting that because the other person has it. So there's this illusion of lack, if that makes sense. Like there's this perception that there exists a limitation, right? Envy, jealousy can teach you a lot about what lives inside of you, what your point of view is. So when it arises within me nowadays, because I used to struggle with it a lot, and I would hate myself for feeling envy and jealousy. Nowadays, I don't feel it as intensely as I did before. I really don't, because I'm in the mindset of abundance. If somebody else has what I want, that's a great example that that's possible. They are showing me that, okay, yes, I can have that dream, whatever I want, you name it, because it was possible for them, so that means it's possible for me. How beautiful is that? And plus, I wouldn't want to take that experience away from them. I wouldn't want them to feel less happier because I am lacking something, X, Y, Z, whatever I think I'm lacking. But when envy and jealousy do arise within me, it's very interesting because nowadays it doesn't show up as strong as it did before, so it's more subtle. It's harder to catch, right? It's just more surreptitious, right? It's just harder to catch. Oh, I'm being envious. Whereas before, it was more obvious that the inner dialogues that I was having, the emotions, it was obvious. I could say, okay, this is envy, this is jealousy, I'm experiencing this right now. Okay, sit with it. What is this moment teaching you? And that's hard, of course, when it's really intense. But nowadays it just shows up in a more subtle way. And I have to catch myself, and it's much harder to catch myself when I'm being envious. Does that make me bad? Does that make you bad if you feel envy or jealousy? No. I think we equate these emotions with badness because it makes us feel like shit on the inside. Because it makes us feel like we lack something. We don't feel fulfilled. We don't feel like we are whole. So there's this feeling of lack. And that feeling of lack is uncomfortable. It makes us feel bad about ourselves. It poisons our outlook on life. But really, if we look at envy and jealousy with eyes of compassion, we can see that it's pointing to deeper truths within ourselves. Things that we need to work on, different perspectives that need to get tweaked or changed. When I catch myself being envious nowadays, because it's so much more subtle and so much more surreptitious nowadays, I sit with it, and it's hard to be, in those moments, honest with myself. Whereas before, when I was feeling those intense, envious emotions, jealous emotions, it was much easier to be honest with myself because it was much more conspicuous. But nowadays, I still struggle with being honest with myself and saying, okay, it's subtle, but that's envy. That what I'm experiencing right now is envy. What I do nowadays when I catch myself in that experience, I let it sit there. I let it talk to me and tell me what it wants to say. Sometimes I feel envy because I see that other people are doing something that I really want to do, but I just don't have the motivation to do it. For example, there are times when I envy artists because I'm an artist myself, but sometimes I just get lazy, and it's sometimes not even laziness, it's just fear of messing up. And that fear prevents me from creating sometimes. And then when I see other artists creating and making these amazing pieces, I feel envy because I'm just like, whoa, they're so tapped in to their creativity, and I feel so tapped out of it, right? I feel so disconnected to it. And so there's this subtle feeling of envy where I know that the envy is just trying to show to me that I'm not connected to my creativity, or I'm not tuned into it. I'm not being authentic in my expression because I'm being driven by fear. So I'm not creating because the fear is there, if that makes sense. So that was an example of how I sometimes envy people, like envy artists. Who else? I play guitar, and when I see somebody that's way better than me, I envy them because I'm just like, fuck, they're so good, but in a good way. It's a good kind of envy because it's not that I want them to suck, because I don't, but it's a good envy where it's inspiring of what I can become. So I notice the envy, and then I'm just like, okay, I'm jealous, I'm envious. But the reason why I'm envious is because I know my capabilities. I know how good I can become if I just put in the time. I know I can be like that. And it's inspiring. It galvanizes me. Envy galvanizes me. You're not a bad person if you're jealous or envious. It's just showing you something that you need to address in your life. Doesn't make you a monster, doesn't make you a bad person, just makes you a human being. Surprise! So don't feel bad about yourself. Cut yourself some slack. Acknowledge that that emotion is there. Sit with it. See what it says to you. See what it's pointing to. why it's there. Just observe it and see what you learn. That's my advice. But it may not work for everybody, but it sure has worked for me. So, I hope you figure out life. But I think none of us ever really crack the code of life, right? But I hope you do your best. Peace and love. Bye.